hello to everyone, especially those on the webcast. You can see me, but I can't see you. So the topic tonight, does anyone remember what the topic is tonight? Very clever topic, actually. The truth about lying. One of the first things I thought I'd take up when one of the things on the leaflet was about how do we really know what's true in today's day and age? Because there's so much what they're calling the post-truth era, where there's so much fake news. Things are presented in such a glamorous way, you can't tell what's true and what's not true. And especially this whole thing of post-truth era, the whole concept of journalism. Previously, when there was no internet and the news was reported, then you were obliged to meet certain ethical standards. Your story had to be checked, the facts had to be checked. You had to have reliable sources. But now with the internet, many of those things seem to be skipped over, let's say. So we hear lots of things and we just don't know whether it's true or not. You hear all these conspiracies. You don't know which one is right and which one is not right. What should you listen to and what should you not listen to? So that's one of the aspects that I've been asked to take up tonight. How do you know what the truth is really, especially in our modern day world where there is a huge amount of deceit going on, and sometimes deceit at very high levels by the influences of society. So that's one aspect. Another thing that was on the leaflet about tonight was sometimes we're very quick to pick out when others are lying to us, but how quick are we to pick out when we are lying to ourselves? So the whole topic of self-deceit. That was another thing on tonight's leaflet. And I suppose what I'd like to start with is there are three words that we kind of use interchangeably sometimes, but it's good to be clear about what each of those three things mean. So one is truth, the other is honesty, and the third is integrity. Sometimes we use them like they're one and the same, but they're actually very, very distinct. So my understanding of honesty is where you, something could be honest for you, but it might not be based in fact. Truth is backed with hard evidence and facts. Honesty could just be your subjective opinion on something. So, for example, you might have a young kid that says, Mummy, there's a monster in the corner of the room. So he's not being dishonest. He genuinely thinks some shadow or something that he's seen in the corner of the room is a monster. So he's being honest because that's what he's understood. That's what he's seeing. But it's not true. There is no monster in the room. So the difference between honesty and truth. And then integrity, as I understand it, integrity is where you take your honesty one step further and your actions support your honesty. And you can be honest without having integrity. Integrity is more about what you do when no one's looking. That's what they say. What you do when no one's looking is what integrity is. So you're in a shop, you accidentally knock something off the brush past and knock something off the aisle. It breaks, no one's looking, so you leave the store. Lack of integrity. Or to differentiate between honesty and integrity. Another example, someone's giving you the wrong change, they're giving you too much change. So honesty is really also about not deceiving, not actively deceiving or lying. Not actively deceiving, lying, or cheating. It's about telling the truth. Whereas integrity is about acting out the truth. So if someone gives you too much change and you leave the store, you didn't lie, so you were honest. But if you had integrity, you would go, as soon as you noticed, you'd go back and you'd return that money. So it comes into your action. But you weren't actually dishonest in the sense that you didn't tell any lies. You didn't actively deceive. You just got lucky. That's how you might convince yourself. So the difference between honesty, truth, and integrity. And if we're talking about how do I navigate myself in a world today where there is so much ambiguity about what's true and what's not true, then one very good spiritual law to bear in mind is, if you're regulars here, you may have already heard the concept of karma. How many of you are regulars here and have heard that? So I think just a couple of hands not raised. So karma being that whatever I do today will at some point come back to me. The same thing will come back to me. So the more I deceive others, the more I'm dishonest with others, the more deceit is likely to come my way as well. So very first fundamental thing to bear in mind. If I want to narrow down even the possibility of being deceived, let me not deceive others. Let me be honest, let me be truthful, let me have integrity. And that's what I will draw into my life. I will draw those type of circumstances to me. Because I think, as many of you raise your hands as being regulars here, so you'll know that one of our core teachings is really the study of the self. Everything begins and ends with me and what's going on in my inner world. So if today, whatever I am, or whatever is going on for me inside, I become like a magnet to draw the corresponding people, challenges, fortune, misfortune, everything that happens in my life today. It's because of the material that's going on inside of me. So like a magnet will only attract. It won't attract plastic. It will only pick up metals, right? It will only draw metals towards it. So my consciousness is like a magnet. Whatever is going on is what I'm going to bring into my life. And maybe I might not be, karma is such an intricate thing that it's nothing to do with one lifetime, but it's to do with numerous lifetimes. Maybe in this lifetime I've been very honest. And so when dishonesty comes my way, I'm perplexed and I think, but, I've never done anything to deceive people. Why is this happening to me? Why have I picked the short straw? Actually, we don't know some of our past karma. We don't know what is, but know one thing for sure. Whatever comes your way, in some way you have drawn it to yourself and it's self-created. But another very interesting perspective to take on this is that things are not what they seem. So sometimes the most challenging or situation which seems like it has a lot of discord or it's dysfunctional, it's not helpful to you, it may not be as bad as it looks. There may be some hidden benefit that's going to come from it. And even on the outside, if it looks like the ugliest, most horrible, most vicious thing, if I can stay true to being positive, then chances are something good can come out of it. Even if it's just an alertness to never allow myself to end up in a situation like that again. So you have a relationship that's gone really wrong. You've been naive about someone or something, and they disappointed you, they let you down. So, and it could be in a big way. Maybe they've come into your life, taken all your money. So it's not a small thing, it's a huge thing. It's really messed up your life. But maybe out of all of that, it's made you alert forever so that you can spot those type of people and never allow it to happen to yourself. Maybe it gives you the empathy to be able to help others who are in that situation. Maybe you become a lifesaver for someone with your own experience. I remember, so this is, are we stopping for this? Carrying on, yeah? So in the last few years, for myself personally, one of the big lessons, I had a major breakdown in my health a few years back. And at the time, I was pretty much bedridden for a few months. And even till today, I'm not 100% back on my feet after that. However, at the time, I felt like it was the worst thing because it's like my whole life was on standstill. I just couldn't do the things I'd been able to do for years. And I couldn't see a way out either. It just felt like the worst thing ever. But today, I would say, looking back, it was the best thing that happened. One of the best things that happened to me. At the time, I felt like it was the worst. But today, I think it's the best. And I say that I feel like it was the best thing because prior to that, I'd never really become unwell in any major way. The odd thing, the cold or the headache, the odd thing. But serious kind of unwellness, I'd never experienced that. And so I really didn't understand when others were unwell. I had an attitude towards others, maybe one of judgment, where, people would say they couldn't do something, they couldn't help with something, and there'd be a part of me thinking, like, you're making excuses, or you don't really want to help. It's kind of a narrative somewhere in the back of my mind. But I never could quite grasp the concept that there are times in your life when you're so unwell that you really do not have energy to get up and do it. Even the simplest. You don't even have the energy to pick up a glass of water. And after that experience, after I experienced it myself, it's just made my heart expand so much more in understanding people who are unwell, but B, in understanding people in general. So now if someone says something to me that that I don't understand, that's not part of my experience, now I think, okay, that's not part of my experience, but there might be something in it. So I'm open as a second benefit. It made me a little bit more open to things that I don't understand or resonate with. So two huge benefits. Now I really get it when people say they're unwell, and it's made me more open in general. And I would not change, I would not turn back properly, because those two lessons are valuable life lessons that no textbook can teach you. Only life can teach you those things. But at the time, it didn't look like that. So that's why I say that whatever happens, don't judge it don't judge it you see on the surface. There could be another dimension to it. It could be preparation for you to be able to help someone else in the future. Why? And this whole thing of, so the first thing we spoke about is the karma of being honest, truthful, and having integrity. The more I have that karma in my life, the more I will attract that towards me. And even if I attract something, even if something comes in my life, I'm just doing a summary of the last few minutes. So the more, if I attract something in my life that doesn't make sense to me or seems like a bad thing, even that I can turn around. If I look for if I just believe and have trust that there's some hidden good in it. Then moving on to another aspect. Every time I have to do a talk, I always spend a little bit of time as soon as I get the talk title, just a few minutes, quiet time, and I always ask a question to myself. And the question to myself, the universe, God, higher power, whatever you want to say, but I will always ask the question. And the question is always, the seekers who are going to come today, what is it that you want them to hear? I put that question up. And then whatever comes back is always one of the things that I would share. So today, not today, but when I got the topic and when I asked for this particular gathering, what is it the seekers hear? What's the message for the seekers today? What came back to me is the opposite of situation where there's dishonesty or untruthfulness is love, actually. Because what is it that makes anybody dishonest in any capacity or untruthful? is actually, if we really break it down, probably most of the times it will boil down to someone somewhere looking for love. And love could be in the form of acceptance. If someone lies today, why are they lying? If a little kid lies to you, why are they lying to you? Because they don't want to get into trouble. They don't want to get into trouble because they don't want you to stop loving them. Actually, today today also I ran into a situation just before leaving, actually, in which I felt somebody was saying one thing to me, but everything inside me was saying, that's not true, that's not true. And logically, everything they were saying sounded okay-ish. But you have that situation, right? Where everything inside you, what you hear and what you sense, doesn't match, doesn't correspond. And so I had one of those situations just before leaving today, leaving to come here. And it puzzled me because this person doesn't usually, but they didn't have any reason to. So I was puzzled. Why? I don't have any reason. I know there's an untruth going on here, but I just can't make sense of why that untruth is happening. There's nothing in it for them. It's not going to make any difference to me. And again, what my inner voice was saying to me was they're scared. So fear is the opposite of love. If people lie, if people try to deceive us, it's really something to do with them being scared. They're trying to protect something. So they're scared of losing something. They feel if they lose that thing, it's going to make them less. And so one of the antidotes, again, is if you're faced with untruth, faced with dishonesty, turn up the volume of acceptance. Because that's exactly what I did in this situation. I just thought, I don't understand this, but I can sense that they're scared, so I'm not going to judge this. I'm not even going to analyze it. I'm just going to experience understanding and know that this person in front of me is looking for something. And I don't know what the end of the story will be because I left straight after that. But I'm pretty sure that tomorrow that person will come and make some kind of apology. Because I didn't go into anger. Normally when someone's trying to pull the wool over our eyes, it irritates us or we become annoyed. In fact, one thing I remember you used to say to myself a lot was, I don't mind if people are dishonest, so long as they're honest that they're being dishonest. If someone says, I don't really, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I can handle that. I can handle that more than when someone says, I'm doing this because of this, this, and this, and they've given 15 excuses. So why is it that we have such a need for truth in our lives is also because somehow truth does endear us to one another. Truth creates bondage. Not bondage, it creates bondage, not the right word. truth creates closeness and bonding and trust. When someone has the courage to make themselves vulnerable, that quality of relationship is a very different quality of relationship, where you can be really nice and polite to the other person your entire life, but you'll never get real closeness. I remember reading once Mahatma Gandhi, when he was about 15 years old. I think he was around 15 at the time. Him and his brother, they had this thing where they had an uncle who was who smoked, and Mahatma Gandhi and his brother, they were fascinated by how he would puff out these circles, and they just thought it was like the most amazing thing, and they wanted to try, but they didn't have the money to get their own cigarettes, and so they tried all sorts of different methods. So they tried getting this grass that apparently you could use like a cigarette, but they couldn't get the same circle out of it. Then they tried nicking the cigarette butts, but they didn't get very far with that. Then they tried stealing the cigarettes, but got caught. And eventually, Mahatma Gandhi's brother one day took, his father had a bracelet that had some gold chain, like one of those chained bracelets. So he took one of the links out, sold it to get the money. And then he told Mahatma Gandhi, his brother, that this is what he'd done. And it played on Gandhi's mind for so long. He just felt so guilty about it, that eventually he had to make himself go and tell his father. And he describes how it was a really scary thing for him to do. And he said when he told his father, initially his father was so disappointed that they'd gone to that length that they could steal something from their own father to get the money to pursue this habit. But Gandhi said that after that incident, the closeness that developed between him and his father was a totally different. It's like after that, his father trusted him. So there is something about this quality of truth that is very, very, very powerful. And yeah, you run a risk because you could fall in the eyes of the other person, so you lose your credibility. There's a risk. They may stop loving you. They may disapprove. They may tell you off. They may tell others about your misdeed. It's a huge risk. We're telling the truth. And sometimes we don't tell others the truth because, if they don't like what we say, they may ostracize us. So there's all sorts of risks associated with truth, being truthful. And yet, when you make yourself vulnerable, there is a power in that as well. You break down a barrier. You let somebody see a part of you that is intimate. You get rewarded. You strip away the skin, and it's like soul to soul, become closer soul to soul. And so that's one aspect. Another thing that crossed my mind about this whole topic is somehow it's something to do with being truthful is also something to do with putting my own desires, or not being influenced by my own desires. Because our desires are often what could push us to be dishonest. Our desires or our needs. I was listening to a very interesting account. I don't know how many of you know the former head of the Brahma Kumaris, Daddy Janki, who what you might describe as a wise elder. She was with the Brahma Kumaris for over 80 years and she passed away just a few years ago. But there was a memorial day for her just a couple of days ago because she passed away on the 27th of March, so actually that's yesterday. So there was a memorial service for her yesterday, a remembrance day. And so different people were sharing their accounts of what she had meant for them in their life. And there was one account I heard of a lady was describing how one day they had just acquired the Brahma Kumaris had just acquired a really big building, and 2 caretakers had been appointed. And one day a gentleman came to see Daddy Janki, and he brought with him 2 really lovely woolen cardigans. And he said, Daddy, I just saw these and I thought they were really great and might be useful to somebody at the centre, some of your staff. So I brought them with me as a gift. And Daddy immediately thought of the 2 caretakers. And in front of this guy, she called them and she said, look, this is a gift for you. And then she said to the guy, how much did they cost? After they'd gone, obviously. How much did they cost? And Daddy Janki was very known for being very economical, not wasting a single penny on anything unnecessary. So the guy who brought the gifts kind of thought, oh no, I'm going to get into trouble for spending money on something that just caught my fancy. So he told her how much these cardigans cost. And she said, that's a really good price. Can you get me 10 more? And she said, I can think of a few others who I would like to give this to. And so in that moment, that guy was struck. What he was struck by was what he describes as someone with a generous heart. He said to Daddy, Daddy, my thinking is just so small. Your thinking is just generous and expensive. He immediately thought about who you wanted to give those cardigans to. You could have kept one. You could have kept one for yourself. It's such a nice thing, but you didn't. You immediately thought of others. You didn't waste any time. You allowed them to take pleasure from that thing instantly. And not only that, you went one step further and thought about another 10 people who you could give this cardigan to. So why is your heart so much bigger than my heart? Why do you have a generous heart? And at that point, she explained to him, she said, a generous heart is the result of 2 other types of heart. First, she said, and she says there's a sequence before you get to a generous heart. First, you have a clean heart. Once your heart is clean, then you get an honest heart. Once you work on having an honest heart, then your heart, as a consequence, becomes generous. And she defined what is a clean heart and what is honest heart. So a clean heart is a heart in which you think only good. You only think of the good of everyone. You only have good thoughts for everyone, not selected few, but everyone. It's a clean heart. There's no bad feelings hidden away in your heart in any corner, lurking in any corner, no shadows. You have good thoughts, good feelings for one and all. Once your heart or your mind is clean, then you have the capacity, power to have an honest heart. So an honest heart is a heart that never thinks about having anything for themselves. So not, that's a nice cardigan. I'd like that. I need a cardigan. But you instantly, you think of others. So honesty, that's why I said honesty has something to do with not thinking about your own needs or desires, not thinking about yourself. It has a quality of selflessness. If I have that quality of selflessness, it's easier to be honest. And the result is that you end up with a generous heart. But then let's go back to this aspect of clean heart, clean mind. Because what I said right at the beginning of the talk is that one of the things on the leaflet for tonight was, what do you do in the situation where you can't tell what's true and what's not true anymore? How do you tell it? So for that, there used to be a time where we could rely on certain external sources. You know, people who were governing had a reasonable amount of integrity. What came out of their mouth, to a degree, you trusted. But that isn't the case. We know that from all the scandals we see and hear about. So what do you do in a world like that? Who do you rely on to tell you the truth? Maybe there isn't an external source that you can rely on anymore. So maybe what we need to rely on is actually our own wisdom. Maybe it's not, I cannot understand what is the truth through the things I hear in through these ears, or what I see through these eyes. Maybe we've reached a time where it's my third eye, my inner eye, and my inner ear that are going to guide me as to what is true and what's honest and what's dishonest. Maybe that's the only reliable source. But how do I know that what I hear inside, how do I know that that's true and that I'm not deceiving myself? How do I know that what I see, even with my third eye, is not colored? Because at the end of the day, we are all colored by various filters. We're colored by the filter of our experiences in life. We're colored by our upbringing. We're colored by our culture. We're colored by our beliefs. We are influenced by so many things that, you know how, I'm not seeing any young ones, no offense, in the room, but you know how nowadays on your phones, you can take a photograph and then you can add all these filters to the photograph. So you can change the color, you can change the hue, you can change the saturation. And you can also even pixels, you can change the pixels so you can distort it. Suddenly a photograph looks like a painting. You can do all these distortions to your photograph. So the original thing looks like, has one, once it's gone through a filter, sometimes it doesn't look anything like the original photo. And there's not even a doubt about it. It's definite that we all have filters. So what we see things in the world, and those images, those things that they enter through these eyes, even through this third soul, they enter actually through the filter. By the time they reach in our mind, it's actually distorted. So how do I make sure what I see and what I hear is not going through my own filter? And for that, one of the things that I've learned being with the Brahma Kumaris is that on a regular basis, I need to clean out my mind, because my mind is so many. So coming back to that story of clean mind being the first step, clean heart being the first step. So cleaning is about removing those filters. And to remove those filters, one of the basic things I need to understand is there's a whole heap of thoughts that populate my mind. Every one of those thoughts is like a filter. And I need to first discern my own thoughts, my own thinking. And there are 4 types of thoughts generally that one could have. There's very noble or very high thoughts. There are unnecessary thoughts, which sometimes in Brahma Kumaris we refer to as wasted thoughts. Then there are mundane thoughts. And finally, the worst kind are negative thoughts. Thoughts that really deplete us. Every day I need to take, when it comes to cleaning the mind, every day I need to, not even just every day, but maybe at intervals during the day, I need to take stock and see what is running through my mind at any moment in time. If it's a high thought, it will generate energy and it will generate light in my mind. If it's a waste, it will generate clutter, it will generate congestion, it will generate emotions that cloud me, that work like dust on the lens of my inner eye. So when I say something like wasted thought, a wasted thought is anything that actually is not productive. That's another word for it. It's unproductive. It could be imagination. It could be something, I'm thinking about something that hasn't happened yet, or something that has happened that I can't do anything about. So it's worries, it's regrets, but actually nothing can be done. So why generate the thought about something you can't do anything about. Once the toothpaste is out the tube, you can't put it back in. Or if you know a way, tell me. Once it's out, it's out. There's no point in trying, in having no regret about it. And if it hasn't happened, why are you worrying about it? It doesn't serve you. It's not productive. And things like worry and things like guilt, they say that the two most energy consuming emotions that a human can have are guilt and shame. Just like different appliances in a room consume different amounts of energy. Some things, I don't know much about electrics, but I know some things consume more energy, more electricity than others. In the same way, certain types of thoughts and the emotions and the feelings that they generate consume more energy. They create more havoc, more dirt, more dust in the mind. And two of those are guilt, which obviously, and shame, which both of which are associated with things that I've done that I shouldn't have done. So waste thoughts. And then there are those mundane thoughts, like I need to do the wash, I need to do the laundry now. It's necessary, but it doesn't exactly fill your mind with light. It's not a wasted thought. It's needed. It's necessary. And then negative thoughts, where you're cursing someone, for example. You don't really get anything from that. You lose your energy. And so one technique to keep your mind clean is to do an SOS every hour, if possible. Because the longer you leave something, the longer you leave the dirt to pile up, the harder it is to clean, right? Or even gardening this time. The longer you leave your garden untended, the harder it is to tackle it, right? And then the harder it is to tackle it, the more you procrastinate from doing it, right? So in the same way, in the cleaning of my mind, which I need a clean mind to be able to perceive things as they are, know the truth of something. The clean mind needs cleaning little and often. That's the suggestion. Little and often. So once every hour or a minute to do what's called SOS. And SOS is short for stop, observe, and stay. So you stop. And we all stop every hour for something. Grab a glass of water, whether it's to go to the loo. There's always something or the other. So it's not like we don't have a minute every hour. We can make the time if we want to. Like we make time for other necessities. So you stop and you go inside and you check what's going on. You observe what's going on in your mind. Are you worrying about something? Do you have unwanted thoughts, negative thoughts? And if you do have those energy drainers, those mind muckers happening, then steer it in a different direction. Give yourself an alternative thought. So if someone, let's say someone's been unkind to you, and as a result, you're thinking revenge, but you've stopped and you've observed, oh my I am really laying into this person in my mind, and this is really draining me of energy. If I let this carry on, it's just going to go from bad to worse. So let me, what can I say to myself to steer my thinking in another direction? Okay, they've said this nasty thing to me. So one thing I may say back to myself to stop me thinking negative is, you know what? Only hurt me. It's four word sentence. Just trying to steer your mind in a direction to maybe feel empathy, maybe feel a bit of compassion, rather than this revengeful track that you're going and so you steer. So this is one method to work with. So that's about getting into the eye, the soul thing. This comes in, you can see it clearly for what it is. You can see the truth of the matter. But as I said in that story about the chap who I felt, I was hearing him say one thing, sensing something. So that had nothing to do with what I saw. It had something to do with what I was hearing. So the other faculty that helps us decipher what's true and what's not is inner ear. And the inner ear is all about tuning into what conscience tells me. There is a part of every soul that is so attuned and so aware of what's true and what's not true. You can hear it. If you're quiet enough, if you're still enough, if you're silent enough, if you're attentive, it only takes a millisecond. But you can hear. You don't need any convincing. You hear it, you know it with certainty. That what you're hearing, whether it's true or it's not true. But again, just like we distort things that we see, this inner ear and this conscience that talks to us, this part of us that holds that wisdom, is often drowned out by many other voices. It's drowned out by many other influences. And it's actually not very difficult to activate it or to hear it. It just takes a few seconds and practice. And the thing is, it's also this thing, sometimes you call it conscience. Sometimes you call it the ear of wisdom. But it's like a good friend who sees you going in the wrong direction and tells you about it. But then they see that you're not paying a blind bit of notice to what they're saying. So they might try and tell you a second time. And they see that you've ignored them a second time and a third time and the fourth time around. What happens? You just think, I'm not wasting my time on this person. I'm not going to tell them anymore because they don't want to hear. Conscience sometimes works like that. If you ignore it, it stops speaking to you. That sound doesn't reach you. And so if I've reached that type of state, to awaken my conscience or to re-engage it, to reactivate it. I really just need to go inside and be very, very, very sincere and say, I want to hear what you have to say. And it's very forgiving. So it will reawaken. But then you need to listen to what it tells you to do and follow it. And one has to be careful though, because there are voices that sound similar to the conscience, but are not the conscience. There's the voice of your own desires that can mislead you. There's the voice of other people's opinions that goes on in your mind as well. And we're quite keen on listening to people's opinions because we think that if we listen to their opinions, we'll gain credit with them and then they'll love us. And love is something we all seek. So we're very susceptible to the voices of others. But how do I know that it is not some misleading voice? Because there's very, very clear parameters for when your conscience speaks to you. First thing is, it always speaks very low, calm, even tone. Your conscience does not raise its voice. It speaks to you without force, without trying to manipulate you, without trying to coerce you. There's no force in it. The voice of conscience is always neutral. Second thing, to tell whether it's conscience or not, is the voice of conscience is always brief. No expansion. I'll give you an instruction in less than a few minutes. It'll be something as simple as do this, don't do this. No expansion. Third thing, conscience has a tendency of saying what it needs to say and then leaving the scene. It won't come back repetitive. Whereas if there's another sound influencing you, whether it's someone's opinion or whether it's your own desires, badge, repeat, come back again and again. When it's conscious, it speaks neutrally, slowly, evenly, briefly, says what it's going to say. You want to follow it? You want to follow it? That's your problem. And so if I can get into the habit of hearing, taking time out, making myself still, hear what my conscience is, ask a question and the conscience will answer any question. And the first answer will be anything after that is you trying to rationalize or analyze. The conscience will give you answer instantly. That's why it's only takes 6 seconds. But that's what the practice of meditation, which facilitates stillness and quietness. And quietness and stillness also comes from increasing my positivity. The more empowering thoughts I generate, climate, if I create inside myself and my consciousness an environment of positivity or empowering thoughts, then I become quieter and more still. So I can hear this. And I'm using that word empowering, very purposeful. There are certain thoughts, you hear them, and you feel strength surge into you. And it may be different for each one of us what those empowering thoughts are. And they're not complicated, simple things, usually. Like I shared one of them with you earlier, which works for me, and it's this thought: there is something good in this. It's my experience, time and time. So when that thought comes into, when I can bring that thought to my mind, I immediately feel calmer, confident, empowered. There is something in this. And so each one of us has our own. We have to look out. When you're listening to people give talks, when you're reading spiritual things, look for the line that makes your heart skip, that makes you go, and write it down straight away, because that is one of your keys. That's the food. You know, for myself, I now have a little book. It's a small little book, and I carry it with me most times. And I just, anytime I read or I hear something that, I don't know, it triggers something inside. It makes so much sense. It's usually just a one-liner. It's my book of empowerment. And when I cannot, when I'm feeling overwhelmed by something, when I'm feeling on the brink of being miserable or depressed about something, I open up my book and I will read one of those things to kickstart power into it. Just a few thoughts to share with you. And I think we're out of time. I don't know, is there time for questions? So anybody want to share any thoughts that they've had or any questions?
It occurs to me that the example where this person was dying could be that they're afraid of you. Afraid, could be that they could
No, you're actually quite right. I've been told that. Just recently, I've been told that I don't suffer fools gladly. So someone said to me just recently that I had a radar that sniffs out when someone's being dishonest, and then I get into this mode where I'm not going to let you get away with it. So that sternness does make people afraid. There isn't enough love yet. I'm working on it. It's true. It's probably me that scared them. Half and half, yeah. Okay. So we'll finish with a short meditation. Actually, unless I came with a few people, would any of you like to share anything on the topic? Yolanda, Marek, Sana? No? Wow. Tell you that's big praise from Marek. Share something, Marek. You've been around for a long, long time. Some insight.
Not much I could say actually. uh, know that truth is probably the final goal I'm going to go for. Or probably I've been fighting for truth for the last. Hope. I hope I succeed.
We wish you well.
Thank you. I will take your good wishes with me.
Compliment a child with because he knows safe with.
That's interesting. That's interesting. If a child can feel safe enough to show their anger or their negativity to you, it's a compliment to you. That I'm just repeating so that the webcasters can hear it clearly.
Right.
So that's a really interesting aspect, actually, to finish with safety. The more I can facilitate, and it builds on what you said as well, the more I can facilitate, be a partner in creating safe spaces, the more I can elicit truth from people.
So that I remember this at this moment because I couldn't figure it out quickly. But now I say it and oh yeah.
Okay, let's finish with meditation. We're going to take the next few minutes to see if we can find our way back to that part of ourselves, that part of the soul, where our deep wisdom, conscience, and inner truth lives permanently. To do that, I'm going to mark everything that's happened in the last hour or so, everything that I heard in the talk. I'm going to leave that all to myself and just become present in this moment, here and now. I'm going to let everything around fade away. So the room has disappeared. People in the room have disappeared. All that remains is just me in this present moment. There isn't a past, there isn't a future. It's just me on my own, and I'm surrounded by stillness, the most beautiful space. Not just still, but surrounded by almost like a mist of love. Like the feel there is love from the universe coming. There is love from God coming with. There is love from my own self towards me. I'm surrounded by this love. Just surrounded. It's almost like a belt. Belt that I love. I'm not affecting fear. Feel myself still. I feel that I'm not this physical body. I'm not even the thoughts that I think. I'm just spirit. That is, that I'm light from the core of my being.
Sister Suman for the wonderful talk and all the tips and tips given. Thank you. And our next week talk, same time, same place, and the topic is emotional fasting. And today's this product of the week. This week is Inside Out by Daddy Janki is a shop, so you can browse through the way out. And thank you to all our online viewers for joining us, and thank you to all of you. For